Hello, everyone. I'm your host, Charlie James, and this is episode 1 of the Bobcat Bytes podcast, bringing you Gen Z news from campus to culture, one bite at a time. Today, we're talking with one of the committee members from the Hoops4ALS organization. We're pleased to welcome our guest for today, Mr. PJ Murphy. PJ, thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
And PJ is the Chief Public Affairs Office at the Ohio University Heritage College of Osteopathic Medicine. He's been here for the last 9 years here in Athens. He's the co-founder of Hoops4ALS. It's an organization that's been making waves across college basketball with Hoops4ALS themed games in Columbus with Ohio State, Lawrence, Kansas with the University of Kansas, and in Durham, North Carolina with Duke University, and with a recent stop here in Athens at Ohio University for a home game versus Ball State. So, PJ, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks. This is great.
Absolutely. So, starting just generally, Hoops4ALS, what was the inspiration behind founding such a program, and what kind of keeps you going? What's your motivation behind this Hoops4ALS program?
Well, so just to put it, plainly, in December 2019, my brother Andy was diagnosed with ALS. Soon thereafter, he has a lot of connections to basketball. He was a student basketball manager at Indiana University and from 1996 to 2000. So we decided that we're going to lean into his contacts, lean into his what he loved and what I love as well, and use basketball as a platform to raise awareness and support for ALS research and advocacy efforts. So that's what we did. We just kind of started reaching out to folks who might have an interest in helping out with that. And the one thing about both the ALS community and basketball is that they're both smaller than you would realize. It's just more small of there's a lot of people who, the more you're in it, the more you realize people know each other. And that's kind of what's happened with ALS and with basketball. Everybody we've engaged has dealt with ALS personally or has a loved one that is dealing with ALS.
Absolutely. I love the way you talk about the community between basketball and ALS and how they kind of coalesce, with the two subjects. So in terms of the day-to-day of Hoops4ALS, what goes into setting up a Hoops4ALS event at any given college, whether it be, an ACC team like Duke, number 3 in the country, or a MAC school like Ohio?
Yeah, so first of all, I will say that we partnered with a group called ALS TDI. It's ALS Therapy Development Institute. They're based out of Boston, and what they've done is they just really believed in the work we're doing and in the advocacy work that we're trying to do. So they kind of help us kind of with the logistics of things. Having said that, I am in all the meetings to kind of talk with all the folks at these basketball programs, and typically the bigger the program is, the more hoops we have to jump through. Mm-hmm. Pardon the pun. But it is something that, like, for instance, I think a couple of the schools work with different communication groups, like Learfield Communications. They just want to make sure that we're not doing anything that it runs in contrast to, like some of the sponsors who pay big money to these universities and these athletic programs. Like, for instance, like they told us, like we couldn't put. One of the schools said you can't put Pepsi on your shirts because we have an exclusive contract with Coke. Mm. So quite literally, these schools are lending their names, their platforms to us for something that money can't buy. Like no corporation could come to like Duke or someone like that and ask their guys to wear like nationwide insurance T-shirts, Mm-hmm. So the Hoops4ALS name is on there, and that's actually really a thing I'm really grateful for, is all these people lending those programs and not really costing us anything, but also giving us kind of untold exposure and really an experience. So
absolutely. And you talked about the message you guys put out and the advocacy you guys have for ALS. So you guys are 2 years into this organization, into the kind of infancy of Hoops4ALS. I just want to get your general thoughts on, how, like, anything you've had to face so far, how have the first 2 years been in a nutshell?
It's been good. The first 2 years, first year rather, we were, one of our committee members is Coach Jeff Capel. He's a head basketball coach at Pittsburgh. He's also played at Duke. So that's really how the inception of this started and really got the ball rolling, where we got a sense of legitimacy. When you do a game at Pitt and Duke and those two teams are featured, a lot of people take notice. Because before that, I would just call up these athletic departments or send letters. And it was like, even guys that my brother knew well, I would be like, it's a good idea, but let's see how you do with, X school or Y school, and I think that was when Pitt and Duke did that. That's when people started calling me and it's like, hey, we should do this. We want to do this. So there have been some learning curves and things about what we do. What we found is typically if the guys wearing the shirts is one thing, and that does get us a lot of exposure, especially after the fact when we put everything on social media. But one thing that really helps in terms of getting clicks, getting eyeballs on our social media sites, and really getting donations for ALS TDI is when people who are doing the games in real time do like an interview or do like a segment on us. And that happens about 50% of the time right now. We're trying to crack that code on how we get everybody to talk about us.
Yeah.
But it was done here, and that just, like you can almost see a spike on like, web presence and engagement and things like that after those kind of things happen. So.
Yeah. So similar ALS foundations kind of focus on athletics in order to, spread their message and raise awareness about ALS. Things like Team Gleason, Augie's Quest. They focus more on, like one of them may have a golf outing, some may have a 5K. So I guess what is it about athletics that seems to kind of ignite a little bit of motivation to raise awareness about ALS?
That's a good question. I think for the most part, I think that the folks who want to be a part of this, who it means the most to, are people who do have a large platform. I think to a person, everybody I've talked to who have been a part of these games, they really appreciate it, and they like the fact that, hey, I'm a basketball player, or I'm a coach at one of these big universities, and I really appreciate that I can do this, and it's an opportunity to kind of raise that awareness. Also, ALS is just a cruel disease. I think really the first advocate for ALS, awareness and support was an athlete. It was Lou Gehrig. Lou Gehrig had ALS, and he was one of the more prominent names in ALS even to this day. It's such a cruel disease that even someone at that level, at the highest level of Major League Baseball at the time. He was arguably probably one of the best players of Major League Baseball at the time. He wasn't immune to what the ravaging effects of ALS. Ultimately cost him his career and his life. So I think that's kind of a big kind of contrast where you kind of see, hey, look at these guys who get to play basketball, these guys who get to move around, and these guys who have fans all over the world are able to kind of use that platform and really kind of inspire folks to not only get involved, but just kind of, feel like there's a little bit of hope around a hopeless disease.
Absolutely. And you mentioned Lou Gehrig, and with your brother Andy, he was a team manager under Bobby Knight. So just having figures like that to kind of support this message has got to be huge.
It is. And unfortunately, Coach Knight wasn't able to get involved with us at the time, but a number of folks from Indiana have. We did a game with the Indiana women's program. Again, just the community, everybody talks about ALS being a rare disease, but the more I'm around this type of advocacy work, you find that like more and more people have a connection to it. So when we were talking with Indiana, we found out that the women's head coach, Terry Morin, her mom unfortunately passed away from ALS. So she was all in on doing a game. So we went over there this past fall and we did a game with them. And quite frankly, I mean, some of these people have become, more than just acquaintances to me. Like some are friends. There's a woman named Liz Honiger, the director of basketball operations over there, who's like we're connected on social media. We talk more, but more about than just basketball at this point. So
absolutely, and we just wanted you, in case you're just joining us, this is the first episode of the Bobcat Bytes podcast. I'm your host, Charlie James, and our guest today is the co-founder of Hoops4ALS, Mr. PJ Murphy. So moving on to more of the impact of Hoops4ALS on college campuses. We know you mentioned the community around basketball, but just saying something specific about why college basketball to you and your co-founders that makes it a great platform for your message. I know you talked about the amount of eyes that are on college basketball in general, but you can say that about a lot of different sports. What about college hoops kind of draws in your guys' attention?
I think it was just the kind of I don't know. I don't want to say it was a coincidence, but I think it was the fact that all of us had some sort of connection to college basketball. My brother, when he was a basketball manager in Indiana, there are a lot of guys now who are assistant or head coaches at other places. So it was it just seemed for when he and I started talking about Hoops4ALS, that was who the people we wanted to reach out to. Then we got when Tom Haverstraw got involved. He's more of an NBA guy. But he kind of saw the benefit of starting this off in the college ranks as well. And then, with Coach Capel at Pitt, obviously he's a coach, college basketball coach. He has a lot of connections as well. We have some other people who were more involved at the beginning and kind of fallen off a little bit just for personal commitments. But Kate Fagan played basketball at Colorado. She did some work on ESPN as well. So I think the connections we all had initially were more geared towards college basketball. But I will say that it's all something we just really like. I think it's something to kind of marry those two, like this strong need or strong desire to kind of fight ALS, and also to kind of use basketball as that platform, just really fit with everybody. So
absolutely. And you mentioned how college campuses have been not necessarily more receptive, but the connections that you have through your group to college campuses is a little bit stronger. What has been the response from colleges when you reach out to teams in terms of setting up, a Hoops for ALS game or just getting involved with their athletic department in general?
You know what? These people have been great to work with. I remember thinking, gosh, Coach Capel was like, I'm going to call these folks at Duke, and then he's going to hand it off to me because, obviously during the basketball season, he's pretty busy. So I was a little worried. I was like, these guys going to big time us? Are they going to make us feel like, hey, we're throwing you a bone, be happy with what you get? To a person at every one of these schools, whether it be Ohio State, Kansas, Duke, OU, Ball State, which as an aside, Ball State's head coach was my brother's college roommate. He played basketball at Indiana, Michael Lewis, and so he's been a really big supporter of everything we do. But to your point about the college I'm losing my train of thought now.
Just about the responses from colleges in terms of when you reach out as an organization, how are they responding to you?
So typically who I talk to, they're media folks, associate athletic directors of basketball. Just people who have been really, really helpful. They just, again, like I was saying, like the first game we really did was at Pitt, but then we had the game at Duke. The Pitt folks rolled out the red carpets for us. It was like they were like, hey, what do you need? Hey, here's these complimentary passes. Come back to the press room, listen to the press conference, do whatever you want. This is your space for the night, which was great. And like I said, to a person, once they agree to do it, it's actually really great, and it's been really moving and really touching that everyone is so open and so agreeable to lending their platform to us, because I think they just get it. They understand what we're asking.
And so that's the responses from the colleges. But you mentioned earlier how the student athletes are providing something that you said money can't buy, which is just having your wearing the merchandise and stuff like that, but also just maybe being involved in the organization somehow. So what has been the response from student athletes, from the people who are actually playing in these games, to your organization?
Yeah. So I haven't talked a lot to the athletes specifically, but I will say the ones I have had interactions with, they're really appreciative of it. There are a couple guys. So we give all the teams the shirts. They all have the Hoops4ALS shirts in their team colors.
Great logo, by the way. I had to say that. I do love the way it's designed.
I do have to give a shout out. And I don't know her name, but it was one of Kate Fagan's really good friends, who's a designer, who designed it for us. So it
looks fantastic.
It's all labor of love stuff. So, but no, the guys who wear the shirts, I think they really take a lot of pride in the fact that they're doing this and lifting up a really good cause. I follow all the teams that we work with on social media, and occasionally, they'll repost a picture of themselves with the shirts. There's a couple Pitt guys. I just saw this the other day. I forget where they were, but a couple of the guys were wearing our shirts in pregame. We only asked them to do it for one or two games. And they were wearing them. I don't know, maybe we just got lucky and got really comfortable shirts or something. But it was nice. So I think that they are really appreciative of it, and I think at the end of the day, college is a learning experience. And I think, these guys who come to Division I college basketball programs are really good at basketball. So they don't really need help. I mean, they do need kind of help and guidance in moving forward that. But I think they're also learning a valuable lesson in what we do. I think it's really important. I think it's really good to learn to help those who need help. And I think college basketball players have that opportunity, have that platform. And I think, like I said, I haven't talked to a lot of them, but I'd like to think that they are all appreciative of it. I think they do get it. I think some coaches, some programs, some coaches will say, to varying degrees, will educate the players on what these shirts mean or why we're doing it.
Yeah.
And I get the feedback from like as an associate AD or a director of basketball operations or some of the media folks, like, man, our guys just love this. They, you guys can do this whenever. So
yeah. And so you mentioned how college basketball players as a whole, they helping people that need help. Mm-hmm. So how is kind of facilitating your message through college basketball players, through student athletes who are 18 to 20, well, I guess 23 now. It depends how many years you get of eligibility.
Yeah.
I mean, that's always going
7
up.
7 years or something like that.
So how facilitating that through through younger people, being able to reach a whole new I guess demographic of audience through younger people. How has that impacted the growth of Hoops4ALS?
This might not be the right answer, and we can go back and cover this, but I will say, and this hasn't happened a lot, but it's actually pretty moving. This was an unintended consequences of what we do. So this year, we've partnered with a group called Hoops4ALS. So we do like a pregame event at a brewery near the basketball arenas within a few miles. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that's happened is people show up to those things. And again, it's not we're still refining it and getting more and more people aware. But there were some folks who showed up at Kansas who were it was the sweetest thing. It was like these people were like, hey, we heard you're doing one of these games. We've seen we're huge college basketball fans. We saw these shirts at Duke or wherever.
Yeah.
Heard you're doing one at Kansas. We wanted to come meet you. They weren't even going to the game. They just wanted to come talk about ALS. They were there because their brother/son had passed away from ALS, and they're all huge Kansas basketball fans. So it was really nice to make that connection.
Yeah.
I do think that one of the things we want to grow this into is really getting students more involved. And it's more than just like, it's great that the guys wear the shirts.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily think we want to ask more of the basketball players or the basketball, programs.
Yeah.
I do want to see how we can kind of grow it and really get more of the kids or students on campuses involved, and whether that means like some fundraising ahead of the event, or just getting awareness through the students and student groups. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I think that's one opportunity to grow.
Yeah, and so with the growth of college athletics in general across the country, with it being whether it's NIL, mm-hmm. expansion of eligibility, even junior colleges allowing more eligibility going into NCAA. So the viewing audience of college basketball, not only the size, but just how many different like demographics or different people that you're reaching out to. Did that influence your your organization at all to focus on college basketball just because of the viewing audience that's out there and how much people truly care about college hoops?
Yeah, it did. I do think because college basketball is pretty popular, mm-hmm. and I think that is something we wanted to take advantage of. Mm-hmm. Plus, it's just these huge alumni bases. I think. I don't think we've done a game where we haven't heard from somebody, an alum or somebody that's like, hey, my mom died of ALS, or my brother has ALS, or I have ALS, mm-hmm. and I'm really glad you're doing this. So I think just having that wide net and really just the opportunity in front of us. I think again we're towing a very sturdy line because we also want to be mindful of the fact that like a lot of these colleges and universities, they're also raising money, mm-hmm. and they also bring donors to these games, and so we want to be mindful of that, but we also I think we've hit the right tones, at least in terms of like the colleges and universities being on board with us being there for one, mm-hmm. and also using the platform to raise awareness and a lot of times fundraise, because we all have the big everything on the big screens, and it directs us to our website, and that's really a fundraising vehicle. So
awesome. And so I was just looking at your website before here. Yeah. You do a decent amount of work with high schools, mm-hmm. Not just locally but across the Midwest. So how has that been just in general in the first couple of years? How has that? What's your reaction to high school as opposed to college?
It's funny. This is crazy to say, when you're talking about programs like Duke and Kansas and Indiana and Ohio State, some of the high schools have outraised the colleges and universities.
Wow. Yeah.
I think partly because it's kind of at a smaller community-based level. Mm. So Stillwater High School in Minnesota, there's a guy that is we work with him pretty regularly. And he played for the Gophers and played in NBA for a little bit, but Chris he's a Stillwater legend, and so he has ALS, and so he also just kind of they rally around him and a couple other folks who have dealt with ALS. But they'll do a huge event at a brewery, and that's kind of where we got the idea to partner with the breweries, quite frankly. But really, the rallying cry is just these people on the ground in Minnesota put in a lot of work to kind of get silent auction items. It's like Steph Curry jerseys, like all these signed autograph stuff. Joe Mauer signed bat. All this stuff, and then. They raised, they're regularly raising like 5 figures, so it's pretty cool.
Wow, yeah. Absolutely, yeah. No, that's just great to hear that from for collegiate level into a high school level that the level of care is equal throughout.
It is, and I want to try to replicate it on college campus. I'm trying to figure out how to do that. I think that's my next step, really. Mm-hmm. But it is really nice because as these games grow and the brand grows, people do want to know. How they can get involved. Like sometimes I don't have an easy answer for that because it's like fundraise. But I do want to find a better way to kind of answer that question. And I think high schools and middle schools. There was a middle school in Bluffton, Indiana, that did a game, and they raised a bunch of money too. It was just because it was just like a kind of rallying cry.
Yeah.
So
throughout the first 2 years of Hoops for ALS, you have maybe a favorite moment. From either college or high school basketball that kind of stands out to you as maybe not only like a turning point for the organization, but just a favorite moment for you personally?
That's easy, yeah. So the first game we did at Duke, and we did it. We featured her a couple times. There's a woman named Andrea Pete, and she has ALS. She's been dealing with ALS. She was a triathlete before she got ALS, and she lives down in North Carolina. And there's a documentary about her because she was determined before she got ALS. She always wanted to do a marathon in each of the 50 states. And when she got ALS, she's like, well, that's not going to stop me.
Yeah.
And so there's a documentary about her that is that's really sweet. It's basically her. She does do it. She ends up having to use a recumbent bike, but she finishes 50 marathons in all 50 states. Wow. And it's actually a really powerful documentary. But it is something that was really cool. So what we did at Duke is we had her there, and they brought her up. My co-founder and I, Tom Haverstow, and I went out with another guy at Duke who is his name's Dr. Richard Bedlack. He's one of the foremost ALS researchers in the world, and he's at Duke Neurology. So we were out there with Dr. Bedlack, Andrea Pete, Tom Haverstow, and me, and the Duke Blue Devil. And it was really wild because the announcer read her story, and I'm standing right there in center court, and the whole place erupts in a standing ovation. It's like just looking around, and it's like, this is... That sounds a little self-serving, but I'll never forget that.
Yeah, it sounds like a real surreal moment to have.
To be clear, it was not my standing ovation. It was Andrea Pete's, but it was really sweet.
Absolutely. And I have a venue like that at Duke, just such a historic place to be. There's so many great moments that have happened there.
So I will say, on my social media, my own personal Facebook page, there's a picture of me and Grant Hill holding one of our shirts. And it was the day after that game, and he was actually at that game. And I never want to bother celebrities. But I'd never been to Duke before, so the next morning I woke up early and just kind of ran around their campus a little bit. And I just saw him doing the same thing, walking around the campus. Yeah. And I was like, hey, would you mind if I got this picture? I was at the game last night. He's like, I know, I heard you guys. That story is great. And he's like, you guys are doing good work. And so I just thought that was really cool.
Absolutely. Yeah. And you just kind of see how the alumni, Grant Hill is obviously a very, very big personality in the world of basketball. Yeah. Him and Christian Laettner are personal heroes of mine. But but yeah, that's great to hear. I mean, so just kind of moving into the future for Hoops for ALS. I know this is kind of still in its infancy, 2 years in, but it sounds like you have a very, tightly knit group of supporters and not only through the committee that you have formed with NBA analysts, college head coaches. So looking forward, what is next for Hoops for ALS?
I think just keep growing it. We never sign contracts with anybody, but they all, to a person, when I'm leaving, I'm like, hey, thanks so much. Make sure to thank them profusely, and they all like, anytime. We come back next year. We can't wait to figure out a game next year. Everybody has said that. And so I think we're building on what we did this year. So hopefully, again, I try to go to all the games. The only game I didn't go to this year was at Minnesota. It was Ohio State at Minnesota. But I try to go to as many of the games as possible. I like to be there. I like to see everything. And I like to make sure that we're we're putting a good foot forward. Want to do these games. I want to turn it into a bigger fundraiser. I'd love to be able to one day be an organization that's looked at as helping usher in a new level of ALS research and advocacy, because there's a lot of people that need help with this. Maybe it's NBA. We have had talks with folks in the NBA about this. I know the Utah Jazz is interested, but we're also there's a lot of red tape to go through that. But so long story short, we just want to keep going and get the momentum going, and just be kind of a name and somebody who equates us or recognizes us as a force in ALS advocacy and research.
Absolutely. That sounds like a great natural next step for this organization, just kind of growing your message and your audience, and hopefully, like you say, reach a professional level where you can reach the whole the whole world. It sounds like an excellent goal to have.
Yeah.
So your son, Kieran Murphy.
Kieran, yeah.
He is currently a manager at Ohio University, and meaning that you follow the team in some capacity.
Yeah. So and Kieran gets complimentary tickets to the game. So I guess by extension, I sort of have season tickets.
There you go.
So I do go to a lot of the games. I watch all of them. Yeah, they're a fun team to watch. And Coach Bowles is, Hoops4ALS aside, he was great in working with us, but all that aside, he's such a great guy. He's a great ambassador for the university. He's a great coach. They were picked to win the MAC. I think some injuries have kind of made that a little more challenging this year. But who knows? The MAC tournament's coming up, and all bets are off in the MAC tournament. You win the MAC tournament, you go to the NCAA tournament, and
there you go.
Here we go.
Absolutely. So. I was just thinking about that the other day. I was like, I just want to get one. Want to get one.
Yeah.
One trip to March.
No, and I will say, Kieran being a part of that basketball program is something that he is so forever grateful for. He loves it. He loves every guy on that team. Like, he's there. I said this in the interview at the Bobcat game, at the Ball State game, but he's the guy that is in the convo at 6 a.m. and at 10 p.m. at night. Like, and he is. Like, I'll call him and ask him what he's doing, and he's just like hanging out. Like, it's one of the guys want to get shots up, or he just wants to be there. He just loves being around it. He wants to get into basketball, after college, so he's pretty dedicated to that. So
and talking about your commitment to basketball yourself through Hoops4ALS, kind of passing that on to your son. That sounds like a really great story.
Well, I will say, it sounds kind of crazy to say, but in some ways, but other ways it doesn't. Like, his uncle was a basketball manager, and so it's kind of like passing down that lineage. And Kieran wouldn't. It was something I had told him about, and he had talked to some of my brother's connections, and he was really interested in it. He thought it'd be really cool, and he's loved it. He's jumped in feet first, and he's never looked back.
Absolutely. So through Hoops4ALS, we just wanted to get the word out there. How can people get involved if they want to fundraise, want to get involved with the events that you guys have? How would one do that?
Just reach out to us. There's a contact us page on the website, hoops4als.com. Or connect it through us social media. I don't do a good enough job of asking people to do this, but I'm going to do it. It seems sort of platitudey, but I'm going to say, go and like and follow us on all socials. We're on Facebook and Instagram primarily, but we're on Twitter as well. I think we're actually on Blue Sky too, but yeah, so.
Nice. There you go. Well, thank you again for joining us, Mr. Murphy. That's all the time we have on today's episode of the Bobcat Bytes podcast. This episode of Bobcat Bytes was produced and edited by Caleb McCluskey. Our social media manager and technical assistant is Anthony Bray. To find out more information and see more content, you can visit hearmyvoice.com and listen to more episodes on YouTube on the Gen Z Up to the Ballot YouTube page. I'm your host, Charlie James, and this is the Bobcat Bytes podcast, bringing you Gen Z news from campus to culture, one bite at a time. While we give you the opinions and perspectives, it's up for you to decide.